Well, hello, good afternoon, Cloudy Club. Happy to be here for another Q&A on this lovely Tuesday. It's very cloudy here. It's like cloudy, sunny, um, and it's looking more like fall every single day, which I love. I'm wearing this giant sweater right now, loving it. I'm excited because winter is actually my most creative time because there's not a lot to do. I live in Michigan, so it gets very, very cold, very snowy. I do love the snow, but most of the time I'm indoors and I spend a lot of time painting. A lot of the art shows are not going on, which sadly they haven't really been going on all summer because of COVID. But yeah, I'm excited for the winter. I'm excited for fall. I just put out my fall mugs. I put out a different coffee mug every fall, and I just put one out. I'm really excited about it. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the shop. If not, no biggie. Okay, so today we are going to talk about art supplies. So Carl had mentioned when I had asked about artist struggles in a previous video that he has struggled with getting quality art supplies. So he said he's on a limited income. He gets a government stipend every month. So he really doesn't have a lot of disposable income, but he needs good art supplies, which a lot of people can relate to this, especially in this time of everybody is unemployed and there's a lot of crazy turmoil going on. So if you don't have the money for good art supplies, do not fear. So first of all, he actually had some good suggestions for where he gets them from, and I definitely want to reiterate that because I think they were great suggestions. So he said he goes to thrift stores, which actually I have personally gotten a lot of stuff from thrift stores art-wise, and it's pretty good. First of all, thrift stores, if you buy their paintings there, they're very cheap, first of all. They can be huge canvases, and it's just someone donated them, didn't want them, and all you have to do is paint over them. Just slap a thick white coat, put some gesso or whatever medium you want on there, and just go to town. And that is a very, very, very cheap and very large canvas for you. So I highly suggest that. You can also find some paints and paintbrushes there. I have not really had any luck with good paints at thrift stores. A lot of them are dried up. I don't even know why they sell them. But a good place for paints I have found would be artist markets. So if you go to an artist resale market, I don't know really how you would find them. I always just come across them. I'm sure you could type it into Google and find one in your area, but they will sell or donate even old art supplies that they don't use anymore. Like for instance, now I pretty much just use watercolor and digital. So, and I have a bunch of spray paints, I have a bunch of acrylic paints, I have a bunch of pastels and colored pencils, and I literally don't use them anymore. So an artist market or an artist resale will be a place where artists will go and just sell their old supplies that are honestly good still, but they just don't use them anymore. And you can get them very cheap. They just want to clean out their studio. And yeah, so I would suggest looking for one of those. You can find really cheap and honestly quality stuff too, because the stuff that I have in my closet is quality stuff. I just don't like pastels anymore. I've passed that phase. So definitely look up an artist market, artist resale shop. Another one that he said is he goes to flea markets too. And I have actually gone to a lot of flea markets in my day. I haven't gone to one in a while. My friend does vintage and resale, so sometimes I'll go with him and I'll walk around and see if there's any artists in the area too. You can find really good paintbrushes or those palette knives if you're into the thick texture. And then even easels or furniture for your studio or things like that. And you can really use that, sometimes you can find, depending on what medium you use, you can do oils or, there's all kinds of stuff you can find at flea markets. It's one of those things where it's like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. So that's why I love going there. You might find nothing, you might find something really cool, but I would just check it out in your area. If you don't have a Hobby Lobby or Joann Fabrics in your area, that's okay. Those places are honestly kind of overpriced in my opinion, although they do have good quality selections. I think I haven't been to either of those places in a super long time. Michael's as well, although Michael's has some pretty good sales that they always send to my house. So if you can catch them on sale, I would definitely suggest Michael's for art supplies. I personally, my very, very, very favorite art shop ever is Blick. So if you've ever been to Dick Blick, you'll know that it is like an artist paradise. I love it. I live in Dearborn, Michigan, which is really close to Detroit, if you don't know where that is. And we have right on Michigan Ave this beautiful Dick Blick store, and that's where I get all of my stuff. I have one of those little cards that gives me discounts because I'm like a regular customer. So if you can be a regular somewhere, definitely do that. That always gets you discounts no matter what kind of thing that you're buying. Being a regular is always a plus. Just got to give them your phone number and then you scan your little card and it gives you like however percent off or you earn points or whatever. So that can help you get some pretty decent art supplies on sale also. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that like it's nice to have quality art supplies or expensive art supplies or name brand art supplies, but you don't need expensive art supplies to be a good artist. You just don't. Like people paint on literal junk and sell it for thousands of dollars. You don't need to spend a lot of money to make a lot of money. Like you need money to make money. That's a myth. That's a lie. You really don't need that. I used to paint on donated watercolor paper and I would just use whatever's laying around my house. You can absolutely do that. You don't have to buy like, you know, a $30 paintbrush for it to be a good paintbrush. You just don't need that. You can buy a children's packet of paintbrushes for like $3 and use that and it will be just as good. The one thing that I will say though is that sometimes cheaper supplies are harder to use or they can be more difficult. So for instance, in my case, when I used to use like donated watercolor paper and stuff like that, I would come across the problem of pilling. So pilling, if you don't know what that is, if you've ever owned like a shitty pair of leggings, you know what pilling is. It's like when you rub on it too much and little pieces of fabric or little pieces of paper start kind of bunching up and getting in your way, basically. So for watercolor paper, if you got it too wet, which hello, it's fucking watercolor paper. If you got it too wet and you like try to do too many layers on top of it, it would actually peel the paper up in a way that it would ball up and then you'd have to repaint that area because the white showed underneath and then it would just ruin your whole texture. And that actually was a very difficult thing to overcome for me using cheap watercolor paper. So sometimes there are things that you need to overcome, or sometimes different paints, even if it's, you know, acrylic in this brand versus acrylic in this brand, the colors, they'll be named the same thing and they'll look a little different. So there are some challenges that come with cheap art supplies, but I think that they can be easily overcome. And actually, I would argue that they might make you a better artist in the long run because I had to work around those challenges. I had to learn how to do it just right so that I could avoid that issue. And then when I could afford nicer art supplies, like now I use exclusively cold press Arches watercolor paper. It is the best. Literally look it up if you're a watercolor person. I don't use anything else now. It never pills and it comes in a block. I gush about this. It comes in a block so that it never curls up either when you paint on it. And then when you're done painting on it, you like take it apart from this block. I should actually show it. Maybe I'll put a link to the one that I buy in this video. But so it can be hard to use cheaper supplies because there are hardships that come with that. However, once you can afford like a better quality supply, it just makes it exponentially easier. Like you don't feel like you're starting from day one. I feel like I went from, I started and I was like, well, this is hard. I'm getting better, getting better, getting better. And then once I got the new art supply, I felt like I went from level 5 to like level 50. So it really does help accelerate your skills because suddenly it's so much easier. And when you can afford it, you can buy new stuff. If you can't afford it right now, then don't. The one thing that I would say is to try to be consistent with some of the brands that you use. So I don't follow this on everything either. Like even now, I still use different brands of watercolor paints because I'm not sure which one I really like the best, honestly, and I'm not wasteful. So I will use an entire tube before I move on to the next brand to test it out. But certain paints dry with certain textures that are different than each other. Like same thing how I said the colors are sometimes different. I have a tube that says cerulean, which is my favorite color, and then another brand that says cerulean, but it's more like Prussian blue. Like it's not the same. So I would definitely try to be consistent with your paints and art supplies and stuff if you can. If you can't afford that, it's really not a big deal. You can always mix the paints together to make them that perfect color, or, you know, there's workarounds and everything, honestly. So you do not need expensive art supplies to be a good artist. Just remember that. You really don't need them. But I will say that once you are ready to get new art supplies, you're tired of using whatever you're using, you're ready to upgrade, the way that I would suggest you to fund that is your art sales. So one of them's gotta sell. Like, you made these 20 paintings with your quote unquote bad art supplies. Just sell one and use it to buy a new tube of paint, or sell one and use it to buy like a nicer canvas. And this is how I funded my entire business. So I don't have any debt in my business at all. No debt. Personally, my personal life, that's different. I have really a lot of student loans, but in my business, there is no debt. So I use my proceeds from my sales and my profits to fund everything that I do. So when I sell a painting, I immediately put that in my business bank account, and I take money out of my business bank account to pay for like art show fees or my website fees, or any type of paintings that I need to be doing, any type of commission work that I need to be doing. So just immediately, whatever you earn, use that to invest in your business, and then you can make it a cycle. So that's what I do. And honestly, your first sale isn't as hard as you think if you haven't made one. I think the first sale that I made was at an art show. If you're intimidated by art shows, really don't be. They're so much fun. I love them. But you can really just post on Instagram these days, and someone will see it, post on Facebook. Maybe your grandma buys it. It really doesn't matter who buys it, as long as somebody buys it, and then you can use that to buy other art supplies. So I would really suggest that. If you're really struggling, maybe borrow some money from somebody. But like I said, I try my hardest not to have any debt in my business, just because it stresses me out, and it'll probably stress you out too. So try not to do that if you can. And it's very easy. Even if, say, you don't have any art yet, you want to start with quality art supplies right away, sell something in your house, have a garage sale. Do you really need that extra dresser? Probably not. Sell it. Make $100, use it to buy some canvases. So it's really, especially in the beginning, about being scrappy if you want quality art supplies, but they're really not necessary, and you can always work your way up to it. So the art supplies that I use right now, I'm just going to get into that really quick because I am very happy with what I use. I use 2 brushes. One of them is a watercolor brush. I think I've made a post about this too, of exactly what I use, and I'll link to it. I only use two paintbrushes ever. Like, I have more, literally don't use them. Like I said, I should probably do an artist market and sell my old stuff. But one of them is a thicker, like fatter, round watercolor brush, and another one is also specifically for watercolor, and it's just a teeny tiny, I think it's like a 0.5, like, I don't know, millimeter or something like that, angled brush. So it's kind of got very sharp, very pointy. I can make perfectly straight edges with that. And it's a lot smaller, so it's for detail work. So I just have one fat brush for covering a lot of area, and one small pointy brush for covering like teeny tiny details. So that's what I would suggest to anyone. If you're super into large scale pieces, I would have, like, which I own one of these when I used to do a lot more large scale works, like a big brush, like a giant, and it doesn't even have like a handle, it's just like a swiper, so you can just do large surfaces. And then I had a regular size one, and then a teeny tiny detail one. And then for watercolor paper, like I said, I use cold press Arches. Sometimes I use like the smaller ones, 8x11. Right now I have a block that's 11x17. That's better for detail work. My prints are usually the same exact size, so I always print them 8x11. But when you use a bigger paper, you can get more detail in, so that when it shrinks, it looks a lot more captivating to me personally. So I like to use the bigger paper, and large digital files as well. So I use just one pencil. It's a 2H, I believe, which is like a hardness and softness level in pencils if you're unaware. I normally would use 2H or 2B. I lost my 2B, so now I use 2H. It's not a big deal. And then the eraser that I've had since literally high school, it's giant. I still use it. So you don't need a lot of intricate supplies. You just need one good pencil, one good eraser, a couple of brushes. The thing that goes the fastest is your paper or your canvas and your paints. So paints for me last a long time because watercolor actually can stretch pretty far because you add water to it. So even though the tube is this small, you always add water, so it really just stretches out your product. You can do this with gesso too, or like paint thinner, whatever you want to use, depending on your medium. You can just really just stretch it and make it go the extra mile. So I also use digital art. So this is, I can't even beat around the bush with this. It is expensive. So yeah, it's expensive. And mostly expensive about it is the tablet. So the hardware. So my tablet that I'm recording this on right now is a Surface Pro 4. It's a Windows product. It's actually pretty old by now. I think they have like a 6 out already. But when I bought it about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know, it's been a while. It was, I think it totaled $1,400 for the tablet, the keyboard, and the pen. So that can really be out of your budget. I bought it for myself as like a graduation from college gift. So I was very proud. I had been using this like horrible clunky laptop. It was like 100 pounds. I felt like just carrying it around everywhere. So I chose to buy a new laptop or a new tablet because after college, I'd always wanted to spend more time drawing and I wanted to spend more time doing all that. And I never made the time because I was always studying and reading. So I invested in that. And honestly, it's the best investment I've probably ever made. I use this every single day of my life. I would probably die without it. If it broke, I would immediately borrow money or like use money, literally anything I could scrape up to get another one because I use it every single day. So that is something I think you should really invest in. And what the program that I use is Adobe Photoshop. So Adobe Photoshop is $10 a month if you get the Photoshop and Lightroom package. So Lightroom is just like a photo, like for photography. I really don't use it, but it was the cheapest package. If you are an iPad user, I don't know how much iPads cost. You can probably look it up. I think you can use Procreate. I think that's an iPad only. I'm kind of a Windows Android girl if you haven't caught on. But Procreate is really nice too, and a lot of people use it and a lot of people love it. And that is only $10, and I think you don't have to pay, it's not a subscription. So Adobe is $10 a month. I think Procreate is just $10 flat, and then you just have it. A lot of people also use, which is another Adobe product, Illustrator, and I think that is more expensive at like $19 a month. I think you can do like animation in there and a lot more advanced things. Maybe someday I'll move to that, but I feel very comfortable in Photoshop and don't plan on upgrading. I just don't need it. So yeah, a lot of the digital things can be more expensive. My pen that I have for drawing, I think was like $80. So that kind of stuff is expensive. If you're looking to do digital work, that's not really something that you can skimp on. There's not, I mean, there are free versions. I think GIMP is a free like Procreate or like Photoshop, but Photoshop isn't even the most expensive part. $10 a month, like whatever. I don't even notice that coming out of my bank account. But that $1,400 investment I had to make for this tablet hurt. So I would just say if you want to do that, maybe start with a different medium first, just get the basics of drawing down, get your style down, and then move to a digital platform when you can afford it. Maybe ask for it for Christmas, your family can chip in or whatever. But yeah, so that one, there's no way around it. That is expensive and you really can't get a quality, inexpensive option for that. So that's what I use. I'm really excited about it. I also use my phone to take pictures of my traditional work to put it on my computer. It's just a regular cell phone, like you don't need anything crazy. I even own like a nice camera and I don't use it because these days you just really don't even need one. So yeah, I love my art supplies. I'm very steady my way. If you have any suggestions for watercolor paints, send them my way because I am always looking to try a new brand on that. I'm usually never like unsatisfied with any of the ones that I've gotten, but I just want to find that perfect one, So if you guys want to share what you use in your artwork, I know we have a lot of different mediums in Cloudy Club and I'm really excited about that. I know we have some embroiderers, which is really cool. We have some photographers, some digital artists, which I'm actually really curious to know what you guys use for your digital art, if you want to share. Because I feel like everybody uses Procreate, and I want to find like another Photoshop friend, because I feel like I don't know anybody who uses Photoshop for digital art, because sometimes people think it's for photos, I feel like, but it's really not. You can paint in there, and it's awesome, honestly. But yeah, so digital artists, we have embroiderers, we have painters, oils, acrylics. I think there's another watercolor girl in here, which is really cool. What's up? We have some collage makers. So really just let me know, what do you use? Where do you find your cheap stuff? Because I'm in the Detroit area. I know we have people in different states. I don't know if they have Joann Fabrics like in New Mexico or wherever. So where do you go for yours? Because I go to Blick. Blick is my number one. Sometimes I buy stuff online, but it's right down the road for me, so I always just drive and get my stuff there. Yeah, so let me know what you guys use. Let me know if you guys have any other suggestions for where to get art supplies, or how to raise money for them. I know some people sometimes will do like Kickstarter or GoFundMe to get their art supplies or to fund a product that they want to make. So I've seen artists say, hey, I want to turn my art into like a necklace. Would you guys Kickstarter that? And then everybody who pitches in $10 like gets a necklace, and then they use that money to fund it. So there's definitely a lot of ways, depending on what medium or what you're making, to fund your artwork. So yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Carl, and anybody else who had this extreme trouble, because I know that just plagues a lot of people, finding the right art supplies, knowing what to buy. Just don't feel pressured. Honestly, you can buy something. If you don't like it, just use it all. Next time, never buy it again. Or if you really hate it, just donate it or something. So it's really not a stressful situation. You gotta just trial and error. Try what you like. It's kind of like finding your medium. You gotta just try what you like, figure out what you don't like, and go from there. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today. We have some new members that came in this week, so welcome to you. I hope you liked your first Q&A. This is pretty much just whatever you guys want it to be. I'll just discuss any topic you guys bring up in the club. If there are multiple, then I'll probably just, do one at a time. But cool. Well, I'll see you guys in there. Tomorrow is Work in Progress Wednesday, and we're coming up on the last few days of our garden art prompt. So I'm going to be posting mine in there in the next few days. I'm almost done with it. It's taking me so long for some reason. But and then we're going to decide on next month's prompt, which I think is going to be spooky or like Halloween-y. So we'll see. If you have any suggestions, let me know, and I'll include your suggestion in the prompt. So all right, well, cool. This has been fun. I feel like this has been like the longest Q&A we've ever had. So I'm going to get off and let you guys go on with your day. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in there.